Hello everyone and welcome back to another Black Desert video. So today I wanted to talk about how to optimize your character for PvE, whether you're grinding and just want to improve your trash loot and hour and everything. So I wanted to expand on one of my older videos which talked about a few things, and I think I wanted to take that one step further, and with a lot of changes happening lately, there's some things I wanted to update as well. So, with that said, all the buffs and everything you should use before grinding, and I'll talk about why they're important as well. So I made a little bit of a list, and I think this covers most of it, and I think it should be good enough for everyone, whether you're a beginner all the way to endgame grinding. So, let's say you are trying a new grind spot for the first time. It doesn't matter which one it is in particular. The first thing you want to remember to do is use your food buff. I would say for about 99% of spots these days, if you're PvE grinding, simple cron meal will be the best thing for you, just because it gives extra AP against monsters, the attack cast speed, movement, and all the other bonus extra special attack damage. But second is exquisite. This is a little bit more on the PvP side, but you can use either one. I would just say simple is used as a more known option, and these are more niche ones for PvE. But either way, food buff, make sure you have one, at least hot bar, just so you remember. But you could also put it on your continuous care fairy if you have one, but if you don't have a fairy, it's not a big deal. But that's one big one to do. The next thing I want to talk about is the difference between elixirs, drafts, and perfumes. Now, going into all of this, you're probably like, oh my god, there's a lot of elixirs I have to remember. Not anymore. It's 2025. Most of the time, people are going to be using harmony drafts, one of three, demi-human, Sylvian, or human damage. The better spots, I would say, are probably demi-human and Sylvians, but it depends on where you like grinding. Use the one that specializes. But back in the day, we used to use full-on, like, 15, 16 blue party elixirs. I wouldn't say these are bad. These are a cheaper alternative. They're not as good, but it's just a hassle to pop all these individually nowadays. Even with continuous care, you can't even see your entire buff bar. So I would just recommend using harmonies these days, and depending on your spot, just pick whichever one you're grinding at for more damage. Now, if you're a beginner, like let's say you're, under level 60, you're grinding the lower end spots, what I would recommend is using the Frenzy Draft of Corruptions, because one, these are significantly cheaper, and you probably won't need to use the demi-humans or the harmonies in general. These are just more for the high-end min-max stuff. I actually think these are still pretty good for the most part. So let's look at it and talk about it. So let's see if the frenzies are sold out. What you could do is, assuming these frenzies are both sold out, you could grind one spot, which is the underwater Sakraya, and get these things, the Abyssal Essences. You can also buy them off the market. I think they still actually sell. So yeah, you could do that, craft your own if they are sold out. But if they aren't, just buy it off the market. And yeah, so these are, I would say, from beginner all the way to mid-game. And you could still use blue, but they're not the best anymore. The best thing to use these blue ones on is to craft a harmony of the type you want. And then harmony is the way to go. And yeah, so perfumes. When do you use them, and when should you use them? So there are a few different kinds. Perfume of Courage is considered the best in slot 1 just because it gives plus 20 AP. That's just a lot of extra damage. The extra HP is nice, and the attack, cast, and movement speed, you should be getting those from like crystals and other buffs anyway. So you're really just here for the HP and AP. Alternatives to the Perfume of Courage is the Bracing Spirit ones. You see the difference between like 20 mil and kind of sold out versus the bracing, this is like the budget option, and they're like 4 mil. But they give monster damage plus HP and recover like the MP, which kind of less irrelevant. Crit hit, you should be at 5 anyway. But these are the budget options. And then all the other ones are, you know, unique and specific. But if you don't want to spend money on Perfume of Courage, bracing is the cheaper alternative. So the next thing I want to talk about is the Villa buff and where you can get it. So, as we all know, the campsite, if you have a free one, I believe you also have to have the Secret Book of Old Moon, whichever this thingy, and it allows you to buy Villa Scroll buffs without being at the Villa. So what it looks like is the Villa Scroll. You get these by the timer, and when you're grinding, plus 10 AP, always nice. HP, DP, all that stuff, just a bonus. If you don't have the tent, what you would do is go to these icons over here, all around basically Valencia area, and these are villas. Buy the 10 mil weekly buff, and it essentially does the same thing. So, next thing we want to talk about is church buffs. You could buy them from the tent, but it costs more. So if you're just in town pre-buffing before your spot, in every town there's essentially a church, and you could look for it by this icon right here, the silver church buffs. And what they are basically these things: attack and deep, or protection and experience. You really only need attack and protection unless you're trying to go for levels. And these are the two different ones, is just how long you're buying the buff from. So definitely worth adding these buffs to your hour or two every single time. And that's good. The next thing I want to talk about is the Carolin buff. Now, some people actually don't know about this. And the reason why is this NPC right here, there's really no reason to talk to them unless you know what you're doing. So basically this buff right here, it gives you crit damage for 30 minutes. I wish it was an hour and it just charged you like literally double the price, like 50 energy for 1 hour, but it's only 30 minutes. And so what you're going to want to do is get that one, get some crit damage 10% for 30 minutes. And if you are in a guild, or even if you're not in a guild, it's not really a big deal. Your house, you can get furniture buffs, which is essentially this thing. So, for example, like one that I use is this one. You know, when you do hunting, you could turn them into various like furnitures, which you could actually buy as well. I believe they're under decoration. The ones you should be going for are basically the ones that give AP plus another stat. So stamina is good for, I guess, more bossing and like higher end stuff that requires, you know, precise movement. Everything else is just like plus 15 AP and you're good to go. So I would recommend whichever one is the cheapest and get that one. All resistance is nice. Plus 100 HP. I mean, you shouldn't be dying when you're grinding, otherwise that's a problem itself. But, and this one, the Coranda one, I would more use the stamina for like Calamity 7 to 10 bosses. You don't particularly need it, but whatever you're doing, just get the AP one. It's worth it, trust. And the next thing I want to talk about is a horse buff. Now, whether you have all the sets or not, basically what you want to do is at least go for the Krogdalo wind set, because this one allows you to get plus 5 AP for 1 hour. And, you know, usually when people talk about grinding, they do it in 1 hour blocks, right? So the way you would use it is you get 5 pieces of this, use the little roar thingy, and you see this icon right here, plus 5 AP for 1 hour. Pretty nice, isn't it? And then if you have the other ones, I am making the third one right now, so I have 4 out of 5 pieces. I'm on the way for that one. And if you have the Krogdalo Sanctuary, what you could do is, you know, have all 3 of them, even though they're on a 5-minute timer, so you can't like just pop all 3 horse buffs. if someone else is with you and they have the different buff, they do stack. So basically, you should try to collect all 3 of the Krogdala ones eventually. The wind one being the most important, but each one has, like, you know, more defensives and more like stamina and all that stuff. So it depends what you want. I would just say the wind one is just a go-to because it gives more damage. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is add-ons. And I'm going to make another video later on talking about this in more detail and how to specify and pick specific add-ons no matter what class you're playing. But basically, you see these add-ons right here. Make sure to actually, you know, do them. And here's like a basic tip that I can give all of you. Without even knowing what class you play, try to pick the skills that, 1, do the most damage, and 2, line up with the add-on effects. So what does that mean? For example, let's take Spirit Legacy. This has a 9-second cooldown. When you use it, you get 2 buffs. You see how these buffs are 10 seconds and 12 seconds? That means you can essentially get as close to 100% uptime every time. So whatever class you're playing, you want to try to keep all of these add-ons rotating as much as possible. So for example, 3-second cooldown, 5-7 seconds should be 100%. 9 seconds on here, 12-second buffs, and so on. You know, it doesn't necessarily always line up, and if it doesn't, that's why you have 2 different skills that, you know, reset the buff and keep it going. So that's how you actually do improve. By these buffs are actually very strong. So yeah, just make sure to line things up properly and try to pick skills that flow really well with your combo. So without knowing what class you're playing, that was a tip I can give you. And the next thing I want to talk about is artifacts. Now, whatever you pick, like artifacts wise, you kind of want to have, you know, monster AP, whether you're a beginner or not. Here's what I would recommend. When in doubt, just get extra AP against monsters. These are the most common. And then extra AP against monsters. That's essentially more AP. It's not 1-to-1, I don't think but it's very close to it. So yeah, it kind of like you would notice it under your extra AP against monsters numbers. So you can test it over here. But it doesn't give you like sheet AP everything, but it just adds to your total at the bottom. So it's pretty good. Once you get to the higher end, what you're going to look for is Kabuas, because these are just overall more damage and survivability. But these are more endgame stuff. But as an entry level, what I would recommend for all of you is extra AP. These are pretty common. You guys can get them too. And then once you start doing that, you kind of want to focus on 3 different kinds of Lightstone setups. This is for offense, by the way. All-out attack gives you the most damage. However, it does reduce your DR and evasion, so you kind of have to have a little bit more gear. Otherwise, if you just go to a spot and just get clapped, it's, you know, it's not good. So this is the highest glass cannon set. But if your AP or your monster AP total is higher than your gear, so let me give you an example. Let's say we're looking at Achman, right? You could click this button to view total stats. This is the total AP combined, so like your AP from your weapon plus your monster damage total. So this would be my stats, like, you know, without buffs. We have 1,000, right? This is my normal AP, and this is like including everything else. So what you want to look at is this number right here, the 550. That is your total stats when you combine this number, whether you play Awakening or Succession, plus AP against monsters, and then, you know, these are a little bit separate, but you add, you know, species. If this number, or if your number is higher than this number, that means species damage will be better, because, you know, this does cap at a certain point. So doing species damage goes over that cap. So that's how you min-max a little bit further, right? So, for example, if Achman was a species, which is it demi-human or a human? I think it's either one. You would use species for it. So just look at like Garmoth or something, or, you know, when you look at a health bar, it's at the top with the little symbol. Figure out what it is, and then what other ones I use are Sylvia and Demi-Humans. We talked about this with the Elixirs, how they are like the two most used ones. So you want to have species damage for Sylvia and Demi-Humans. Whether you have Kabuas or not, it doesn't matter, as long as it's extra monster damage. So this thingy over here, it's fine. It's just less damage. But yeah, min-max, eventually you want to go for it. And of course, finally, crystals. I have an entire video of all of this. I talk about every single set that I use, and it's like a 30-minute video. So just to keep it short, when in doubt, you could use this one. It's my go-to setup for most things. Everything else is, you know, specific usage. And yeah, so what you could swap out for this one is, if you want like absolute min-max damage, you could take out some all DR and you can add this one. This is maximum damage, I believe. And then if you don't like corrupteds, you could swap these out for back attack damage, and it's basically the same thing without the penalty, but you have to do back attacks. So those are some tips that I can give you. Let me see, that was like 10 ways you can buff yourself before you grind and optimize your character for PvE. And yeah, of course, more buffs better. But those are the things that I think you guys can get regularly. And it's not like, oh, I have this buff, but it's only because I got it from the seasonal event or something. These are things you can do every single day. And no matter how like old this video could be 5 years from the line, just essentially the same thing, but whatever the meta buff is at that time. So the concept still is the same. But with that said, I want to say thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If it helped you, let me know. If you try a grind without buffs and then with buffs, let me know how much you improved. Or if you tried everything like halfway, let me know what kind of trash loot you got before and after. I would love to see the difference. So yeah, that's about it for today. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.